Hathaway's Flash, also known as Gundam Hathaway, is currently Sunrise's biggest Gundam project. With a big budget, terrific mecha designs, a beautiful aesthetic, it definitely raises expectations. Another interesting thing about Hathaway's Flash is its setting. The Philippines has been home to many Gundam fans since the late 90s, and that number continues to grow. That said, having Philippines as a setting for Gundam means a lot to the local fanbase. And Davao, the specific location of the movie, is actually a very interesting place. As a Filipino Gundam fan, I thought it would be interesting to review and analyze Hathaway's Flash from a Filipino perspective. I'm Nichols. If you've been following my channel, you probably know me more for my toy videos. I recently posted a video about my painted high-grade Gustav Karl, which was featured in Hathaway's Flash. So yeah, the link in the description if you want to check that out. Alright, so first let's talk about the setting. While Davao is known for its anti-terrorism and anti-crime approaches, it is also part of a region called Mindanao, which has its own history of armed conflict. For example, we have the Abu Sayyaf jihadist armed group. We also have the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF. That was not a joke, they really are the MILF, the MILF, so... It's a semi-armed autonomy-seeking group, which is currently on ceasefire. Tourists were advised against visiting Mindanao for multiple reasons, but it's a very beautiful place, so hopefully in the near future and after the pandemic, tourism in the Mindanao region would boom. And speaking of beauty, the movie captured the Philippines so well. The beaches, the Filipino wet market also known as the palengke, the slums, the nature, Jollibee, including the classic Filipino favorite, the Chicken Joy thigh part. Yeah, it sells out here all the time. The thigh part specifically. Filipinos love their thick thighs. They also properly portray the local commercial areas, with the pawn shops, the ihaw areas where Filipinos would eat street food. The palengke also had some durian, which is a popular fruit in Mindanao. So it's a very spiky fruit that may smell bad if you open it, but it's still pretty good. And then the way the cinematography portrayed the Philippines, there was a divide between the metropolitan areas and the more rural areas, including the beaches. A lot of Filipino areas are like that right now in real life, especially the ones in the more provincial sides. There's a metropolitan side of the island and then there is a rural side. Speaking of beaches, aside from the beautifully portrayed beach of Davao, they were also able to properly capture how the beach side looks, like how there are wooden structures and fences near the shore. That's actually something you're gonna see a lot in the Philippines. They also showed how people put rosaries behind their car mirrors. That's actually a very Filipino thing to do. The Philippines is a very religious, very Catholic country. So putting your rosary behind your car mirror is actually kind of like a good luck blessing in a way. They were also able to depict the Tiangge, which is basically like a local shopping area. And they were also able to portray the slums very well. The way the slums look like in Hathaway's Flash is exactly how they would look like in real life in the Philippines. The movie also had bad drivers, which, yeah, there's a lot of that in the Philippines. A lot of them. Oh my god. Oh my god. Another thing accurately depicted in the movie were the Filipino people. The Filipino kids, teenagers hanging out without a shirt on, yeah. That's a very Filipino thing to do. And of course, we can't forget the middle-aged Filipino man playing solitaire on his computer. As a Filipino, you'd usually see your grandpa, the elderly in general, do this. And I guess the most interesting thing about Davao is that it was once led by Rodrigo Duterte, who is now the president of the Philippines. Davao City is currently led by Rodrigo Duterte's daughter, Sara Duterte, who was actually in the credits of the Hathaway's Flash movie. Now let's talk about the story. It's a very unique concept for Gundam. In Hathaway's Flash, we have terrorists as the protagonists of the story. While Mafty feels like a startup company version of Celestial Being, or maybe even Project Meteor, they made Mafty really seem like a terrorist group, like how there are radical fanatics posing as part of Mafty, and it also expounds on the end justifies the means theme. It's a very Gundam theme, but it's portrayed quite uniquely in Hathaway's Flash by making the main character a leader of a terrorist group, and at the same time sort of questioning if the ends really do justify the means. Some people would say it's an anti-corruption story, like how top Federation officials had bottomless wallets in the story. It was also mentioned that people who are on top, who have exception, kind of prevent the world from gaining this universal equity. One interesting scene for me was one that depicted how people can only focus on the present and can't really think about the future. Like if you remember that one taxi scene, yeah, this is a very common mindset in the Philippines. You know, that mindset where you can't focus on the future and you can only worry about the present. Now let's talk about the production. One thing I really appreciated were the character redesigns. As a lot of you may know, a lot of the designs here weren't taken directly from the Hathaway's Flash novel. A lot of them were redesigned, like Kenneth has been redesigned, Emeralda has been redesigned, Hathaway and Gigi were slightly redesigned, and I think everyone looks so much better now compared to how they look like in the novel or in the SRW. I believe that was SRW, or was it G Generation? You know, one of those SD games. I also want to say that all the waifus here look beautiful. Woo! Especially, like, I have a special spot for this background character. I think her name was Julia. She was like at the near end. Wow. Yes. I hope we get to see more of Julia. Please. Animation-wise, it's basically an upgraded version of the quality we've seen in Unicorn. Characters look more solid, the movements are more vivid, the movements are like smoother for me, both with the fight scenes and the casual character interactions. And the way the movie depicted light effects and sparks, there was definitely a lot of effort put into that. So yeah, good job, Sunrise. Although there was one scene that I found kinda weird. If you remember that scene when Emeralda, while using the Messer Commander type, was performing this logistics mission. They made that scene seem really critical, and a part of me thinks that they were trying a little too hard to make it seem realistic. I haven't really read the novel, so I'm not sure if Emeralda really is an amateur pilot, but she was in the Commander type Messer. Although one possible implication of the scene would be that maybe Emeralda is used to combat, but not used to logistical missions. Maybe they mentioned it, maybe I just forgot, I don't know. Maybe I just missed it, but yeah, that is one possible implication. A lot of fans also argued that the movie did not have as much fight scenes as they expected. You know, maybe the novel really wishes like that way. Although I imagine there could have been like some parts where they could have inserted like a surveillance scene or something with mobile suits. I remember Unicorn doing that a lot, like just to increase the presence of mobile suits in the movie. But for me, I totally understand why there weren't too much fight scenes across the movie. Like a Gundam series would usually start with like a fight, and Hathaway's Flash did not really start with a mobile suit fight. Maybe that was something people weren't really used to, but it's not that much of a big deal to me. And the fight scenes we did have were, I think, amazing, especially the one with the Messer. Like Gauman versus Gustav Karl and the Penelope. The Kusi Gundam also did have its own great shots within the movie, so yeah. Now let's talk about the music. As a lot of you know, Hiroyuki Sawano did the soundtrack again for this, returning as the man who also did the soundtracks for Gundam Unicorn and Gundam Narrative, I believe. Hiroyuki Sawano, for me, like, one common issue I find with his music is that he tends to be very repetitive, but for this movie, I appreciated how he tried to do new things. Like, there were a lot of soundtracks in Hathaway's Flash that sounded different from Hiroyuki Sawano's usual music, but you can still tell it's him. Like, you can still tell it's his style, but he's trying to do something different. Like, some soundtracks to me sounded like secret agent music, like how Sawano would make secret agent music, or how Sawano would make like Pacific traveling music. And another thing I really want to talk about the music is the ending theme, the credits theme, Senko by Alexandros. What I really like about it is that it sounds like a soldier's anthem. It starts off with this marching drum beat, and then as it progresses, it becomes more aggressive, as if the soldier is rushing into battle. Some Gundam fans would argue that it does not sound like a Gundam song, but I think it very, very much is a Gundam song. So yeah, with that said, I'm very, very thankful for Hathaway's Flash. Thankful for how it portrayed Davao. Thankful for how it's adapting the story. Hopefully we get a Crossbone anime in the future, right guys? Right guys? Crossbone anime, okay? Sunrise, if you're watching this! I hope you learned something interesting from this video. So yeah, with that said, you guys have a great day, a great night, a great week, a great month, a great year. I'll see you guys next time.